This episode of Bulletproof Cash Flow is brought to you by Realty Dynamics. Learn how people like you can build substantial passive income while creating wealth for the long term through real estate investing. Visit rdyne.com. That's RDYNE.com.
If you want to practice, just go to Craigslist and start calling some people who have for sale by owners. I mean, they want to be called. That's why they're advertising in Craigslist. And just call them. And honestly, you'll be flinching naturally because they're out of their mind on price already. I can almost guarantee it. So whatever, but just flinch, bracket, use a specific number, get used to those techniques, and then you'll probably want to come to me and learn the rest of the 52 because these are powerful. When you start to learn to move somebody from saying no to saying yes, and when you start to get prices dropping down to where you need them to be, suddenly you go, wow, this negotiation thing's really powerful. Why didn't they teach it to me in school?
Working because you want to, not because you have to, is financial freedom. And we want to help you create that. Welcome to the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. We're going to teach you how to achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host is a multifamily syndicator and property developer. He's done deals reaching into the hundreds of millions of dollars. You'll hear from experts in all aspects of real estate investment, finance, development, and management. Everything you need is right here. This is the Bulletproof Cash Flow Show. And this is your host, Augustino Pintus.
Hey folks, ever wonder how you found this podcast? Was it LinkedIn, Instagram, a tweet? Well, here's the deal. I don't do ads. I don't do sponsorships. All I ask is that you pay it forward. If someone shared or recommended this podcast to you, do the same. A review, a mention, anything helps. Thanks so much. Hey everyone, it's Augustino. In a super competitive real estate market, you're always looking for the best deals that fit your criteria. This means not only locating, but also negotiating the deals that work for both sides of the table and that everybody can agree on. In today's market, especially, having that leg up on negotiating is a big, big help. Well, the next guest knows all about this. He's been an active real estate investor since 2001. He's also a published author and president of the Traction Real Estate Investors Association. As a master at real estate negotiation, he has a focus on wholesaling real estate in many markets across the United States. Now, he works with real estate investors of all levels to get their businesses built and scaled so that their personal goals and lifestyles stays at the center of everything they do, giving them more money, more time, and more freedom to spend as they please. Now, he's also the host of the Traction podcast that outlines exactly what it takes to become a real estate entrepreneur. Now, with all that, I'd like to welcome my good friend, Tom Zeeb, to the show. Tom, buddy, thanks for coming on, man. It's great to see you.
Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Good. Now, guys, if I think what Tom has to say, you can reach him via his contact page at tomzeeb.com. Okay, Tom, go ahead and tell the listeners a little bit about your journey. Tell them how you got started in all this.
Oh, I got started because I was sick and tired of working in a corporate job. It wasn't the end of the world, but it wasn't, I had no freedom. I hated waking up to an alarm clock. I hated taking orders from other people. It didn't fit me personality wise. But there wasn't an easy way out, particularly that I had been very, very, very financially unwise. And I'd worked myself into a heck of a hole of debt. I was 113 grand in the hole. And how on earth do you get out of that legitimately, without a gun or white powder? How do you kind of do? Are they going to give me $113,000 raise? Probably not. And even if they did, I'd lose half the tax. So the whole thing was just not. I was in trouble. So I did the only logical thing, and you when you said we're friends, we are, right? I mean, I do know you personally. You've been in this very room. It's not like you're just saying that, but so you know how much I love to travel. So when I was looking into the financial abyss and having absolutely no discipline, I just took another vacation. I scooped up what was left of my vacation time, put more money onto more credit cards, and went to the other side of the world and went whitewater rafting with a few of my buddies in India. We were in the Ganges River, and it was awesome. And I mean, it was fantastic. I felt like Indiana Jones. It was great until we went through a very, very rough Class 5 rapid. And I flew off the raft, and I was sucked underwater. And there was was a very interesting thing. Not sure if you're going to make it up or not. And then instead of being kind of scared, I got angry. I was mad at myself. What had I done? All I did was spend money and go into debt. I hadn't done anything productive. I hadn't become who I knew what my potential was. I hadn't lived up to my potential. Hadn't done anything big. And I swore, I get out of this, things are going to be different. And you know what? I got back home and nothing was different. I was still at the desk and I was still in debt and I still couldn't go anywhere or do anything. And so then I was even more aggravated until, and I'm going to guess you've read it, and I'm going to guess most of your listeners have read it, until a friend handed me a book by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
I heard of that. Yeah, I heard of that book.
Yeah. And, but everyone in our space seems to have heard of it. And man, it hit me like a ton of bricks. That same frustration I had when I was drowning was now addressed. It was answered. The solution was to own real estate, to own rental properties. Now, it doesn't tell you how, but it tells you what. So I just ran out and bought something. And that almost took me under two, because I bought a 6-unit building in New York City that was an absolute wreck. None of the tenants were paying anything. I couldn't get any. So I made a bad situation worse from not having any detail about what to do.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing, though, too. I think back then, that's 2001 when you did that.
Yep.
Yeah. So
back then, the money was flowing easy.
Yeah. And I think that also, I mean, real estate was far less expensive back then than it is now. I mean, it was still up there, but not nearly what it is today. But
yeah, I paid $450,000 for that building, which I believe is worth about $2.1 million today.
Yep.
I don't own it anymore. I lost it.
Yeah. Yeah. But you know what, though? It's certainly a valuable lesson. I mean, certainly getting the right coaching, getting the right mentoring around putting deals together is extremely important. Extremely important. I think you took that first step, which is great, but it's like really what happens next is make sure you make the right decisions, right? So once you get into how'd you end up figuring that part out? Like how'd you end up going from that? Then obviously you had some problems with it. How'd you get out of that hole and end up getting in the right path?
Yeah, I wound up losing that property on a short sale. An investor finally found an investor to swoop in and save me. I was doing the deal with my sister, and finally, my sister got beat up trying to collect rents from one of the tenants. So people go, oh, well, you could have had a $2.1 million property. Okay, over 20 years, that's about what, $100,000 a year. I could think of much better ways to make $100,000 a year than getting your head smashed into the wall, or I guess getting my sister's head smashed into the wall. Either way, it's an unpleasant experience. So I didn't take no for an answer. So even though this wasn't going well, I said, there's got to be a better way. I started focusing close to the home. Now, at the time, home was Washington, D.C. I was living in Washington, D.C. I found these magical places called RIAs, Real Estate Investor Associations. And I showed up at a local RIA, and there were all these investors in the room that were actually doing things. It wasn't just book knowledge anymore. These were real, actual people that did real, actual deals. I thought, So I thought, now I guess I need to fix and flip a property. That's going to be my ticket out of here. And so I started negotiating closer to home, and I got a tiny little townhouse on the Virginia side of Washington, D.C. I got it under contract, and I was going to fix it. But I lucked out because a fella came up to me at one of the meetings after I had announced I had this deal. He said, hey, I want to buy that from you. But I said, it's not done yet. I haven't fixed it. He goes, he kind of laughed at me. He goes, no, you're not going to be able to do it. I want to buy from you right now as it is. Just assign the contract to me. I'll pay you, and then I'll take it over and send my crew in. And I went, you can do that? Legally? Really? And Augustino, he gave me a check for almost $23,000. For that was what I got. And all I did was negotiate the deal, market to find it, negotiate it to make it, put it under contract, and then I sold my contract off to this guy. And I thought, if I could just do that again and again and again, I'll be a happy camper, because I don't have to do any of the parts of the business I don't like. I don't like tenants. I don't like rehabbing. I don't like managing crews. I'm no good at carpentry. And so, but I like negotiating and I like marketing. This is great. And I did that again and again and again. In 6 months, I had my debt paid off and I was finally free.
Awesome. And I think something else you said, though, that was also great is that you stuck close to home. You stayed in the market that and you knew what the value was when you bought it. You knew that you still had plenty of upside, And you knew that when this guy wanted to hand you a check, you knew that you can make some nice cash fairly quickly because you're familiar with the market. That's huge right there, right? Gives
Yeah,
you obviously a leg
that
up.
helps a lot as well. Every now and then I'll dip my toe in another market. I have students in multiple markets, but a lot of times I say, look, there's enough going on. You may not feel this way, but there's enough going on in your own backyard. Look around. You're there. You can learn. It's so much easier to network with people. You're actually there. It's so much easier to learn something because you're actually there. It's just a lot of things solved because you're actually there. I mean, if you doubt that you live in a good market for real estate investing, just ask yourself, where do people live? They live in houses. They live in apartments. So somebody owns those, and it's not necessarily them. There's a lot of renters in your area, and so go find those. You'd be surprised.
Yep, absolutely. No, I'm a real big believer in that. So obviously you negotiated that deal, but I think you've negotiated probably hundreds of more deals since then, right? On a bunch of different things. So what is the typical flow of a negotiation? Like, how does that typically flow? Can you describe it?
Yeah, there definitely is a flow to it, and if you're nervous about that at the beginning, just practice. It's talking. Talk to people and practice asking questions. That's the first part of the flow. Is I call it pinpointing. You want to pinpoint what their problem is. I am primarily looking for motivated sellers. They're motivated because they have a problem in their life, a problem with a property or a problem in their personal life somehow, that selling the property will get rid of that problem. And solving that problem is their number one thing. It's their number one issue. It's their number one most important thing in the world to them. It's not price. It's solving the problem. I'm an investor. Price is the most important thing to me because that's how I make it into a deal. But if they need to get their problem solved and I need to get my price, we can both win. I can make a win-win negotiation because I can solve their problem and get my price. So when sometimes you'll hear people say, oh, there's no such thing as a win-win negotiation. That's corny. That's cheesy. That's not true. Nonsense. Of course it's true. Just don't be arguing about the same thing, which is why in your marketing, you're looking for motivated sellers because they need to sell the property even more than they want to sell it. And that's because they need their problem solved. So the first part is identify those people and then start pinpointing their problem by asking them questions about it.
Excellent. So what happens then? So you find somebody, maybe you reach out to them, maybe it's an inbound, which is great, a great sign of motivation right there, when you get an inbound call. What happens after that?
Well, they start telling you their problems. You're pinpointing their issue, and now you're an investor, so your mind starts moving, right? All those gears start going, and you start to figure out how you can solve their problem. And I call that package. You're packaging up a solution that would work for them. So, okay, based on everything they said and the numbers you need to have, you wind up creating a package that works for them. It solves their problem, gets them out of trouble, and works for you as an investor, which means you're going to get a deal where you're going to make some money.
Yeah. And a package, I'm going to guess here, is not just money, but also say, it could be maybe they need something else out of that deal. Maybe they need to get out fairly quickly. Maybe they need a ticket to go to Mexico or something. Who knows what it is? And that's the thing. I mean, when you work on any type of deal, anything's on the table for the most part.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of what that
Sometimes
package is look like.
Yeah, they need reintroduction to family members that want to help them if they've gotten older. They need sometimes they need money for the moving truck. Sometimes they have some extra concerns, or they're just older and they want to make sure that when they pass, the money is going to go to the grandchildren the way they want it, for the things they want their grandchildren to spend the money on, like college education or something. And we can help guarantee that because you can put anything you want into the payout notes, into the instructions, or set up an escrow account with the attorney to make sure these things are addressed and taken care of. That really puts that person's mind at ease, and that's part of the package. And so when you move to the third phase, the third part of the flow, which is persuade, you got to persuade them to say yes. Well, if you know what the problem is and you put together a package that is customized for them, it doesn't usually take too much persuasion, but there's an art and a science to that. The persuasion side is the raw negotiation, where you just use certain techniques and talk in certain ways to move people from saying no to saying yes.
That's probably one of the biggest things, right? Is that you may encounter some resistance even after you package it. And if you did your package correctly, if you created it correctly, you're getting their input the entire time. You're saying, if you do this, if you do XYZ, if I throw in a ticket to Mexico and I get the moving trucks out there tomorrow and yada, 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 do you see anything that's going to keep you from signing this PSA?
Yep.
I guess you're checking all those things as you go, but then eventually you're going to have to hand over that PSA, and you may encounter some resistance there, right? They may say, oh, I got to have X, Y people review it. I got to do this, that, and the other. I have to talk to my spouse, blah, 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 blah. So I guess preparing for those types of scenarios is extremely important, right? So, and you help people with these kinds of things, right?
Yeah. And I want people to check with whoever they want to check with. They want to check with a spouse. They want to take a little time. There's that part of the patience that you have in dealing with that, and allowing people to walk away shows a certain strength in you and a certain confidence in you. And you're much more likely to get the deal by giving them a little bit of time to think about it and coming back. Don't kind of stand there and sign right now. That ability to walk away shows that you're not needy, and there's that makes you look so much more professional and calm and in control. And they'll come back to you before they'll even run to find anyone else, because they almost appreciate subconsciously being given that opportunity to breathe on their own, talk amongst themselves on their own without you there breathing down their neck.
Yeah, I think there's something else that, and you alluded to this already, is that when you're a professional and you're giving them their space to do what they need to do, most people have to keep in mind that in these types of scenarios, you're not the only one that's talking to them. There are other people calling the same seller too. And because that seller might have called 5 different folks just like you. And if you're going to be a jerk in any way, shape, or form, you're off the list. They won't even call you back.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And I find that my actual process of negotiation, the way I go through the whole thing, locks people into me. Because there's some people, they'll get some investors that call, give them exactly what they want right off the bat because it's a great deal, or just start high pressure salesing them. Those guys lose it. But I'm asking them questions, listening, right? Going deeper, asking for more information, which all comes across kind of as caring. And I don't mean caring in the flaky way, but like people want to be listened to, right? That's just a fact of life. So if you're just running roughshod over them, that's why they're not choosing you. If you ask them questions and you're interested in what they have to say, and you ask them for more detail, even if you don't need to know more detail, ask them. Oh, tell me more. That's fascinating. Tell me more. Oh, a tree fell on the house. Great. Tell me more. And then it's kind of, you keep going from there. You're building rapport with them as you go. Now, when someone else calls them back or someone else they reach out to, they're not as interested in that person anymore because there's some sort of magical connection with you. It's rapport.
I think it's also reminding them of their pain too, right? Like in the case of, let's say the house fell or a tree fell on top of the house. Tell me more about what happened. How did it impact you? Oh my God, it was terrible. All my clothes were destroyed. I had to go buy new clothes. Oh my God, what'd you end up doing then? Oh, I had to go to Macy's and buy all new stuff. It reminds them of the pain, and you're listening to them, obviously. So it's not like a one-way street, but it's you're reminding them of the pain, and then when you take them to the place of pain, you can then introduce a solution for that pain, and that's a big part of this whole scenario, I imagine, right?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So for those folks that are out there, negotiation sounds like it could be fairly tough, right? Sounds like it's could be scary for most people. Like, how do you help those folks really get over this kind of stuff? Because it sounds to me, obviously, you've been doing this for a while now. For someone starting out, what sort of things do they need to do? Is it just reps and sets, that kind of thing? Hey, my amazing Bulletproof Cash Flow tribe. Before we dive back in, I want to express my sincerest gratitude for being a part of this community. Your support is what keeps us going strong. If you've been enjoying the information that we've been sharing here, I have a quick favor to ask. Would you mind subscribing to the show and leaving a review on Apple Music? By taking these small steps, you'll help us continue to deliver exceptional content while expanding our reach to fellow investors just like you. Thanks so much for your unwavering support. And now let's dive back in.
Pretty much, but practice. Like, yes, you're going to be scared. Okay, fine. Yes, it's going to be awkward. Yeah, a lot of people don't like the whole thought of negotiation. Put that aside for a minute. Get over it and just try. Practice. Get in there and start talking to somebody. Just have a conversation and then start to bring in some techniques to the negotiation and watch what happens. You might get really surprised when just a few things you say gets a price starting to drop. And now suddenly something that didn't have potential as a deal is becoming a deal from simply things that you're saying. Then I think you'll get addicted to it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I understand there's some 8 negotiating techniques that you can use. I've read about that somewhere that you have. Do you know what those 8 are? Can you tell us about them?
I use 52 different ones.
Okay.
It's like literally playing with a full deck of cards. In fact, I even give my students a deck of cards that I made that have all the negotiation principles and techniques on them.
Nice.
There's a core 3 that I like to use, and it starts off with the first one's called flinching. So it's the way you react to the number. So Agostino, say a number.
6.
6? Whew. Really?
6. 6
No.
is it.
6, yeah. How did you feel when I flinched at your number?
Well, that's a hell of a reaction to the number 6.
Exactly. Wow. So therefore, 6 isn't quite the right. Now, Tom doesn't like the number 6. That's
Right.
all. That was a bit aggressive. Yes. Okay. You feel a little odd about the number. Now, the interesting thing is, I didn't say give me a price or tell me the cost of an apartment complex or a house or a car or a boat. I just said say a number. And the way I reacted, you're going, oh, that must not be the right number. Something's wrong. He doesn't like that.
Yeah.
So that's everybody's psychological reaction when you flinch at a number. So great. If you flinch every time you hear a number now, which, by the way, all of your listeners can do on the very next time they talk to anybody, flinch at a number and watch what happens. They're going to feel some downward pressure on that number. Like, that number's not right. They need to change it. Well, that works in your favor. So every time you ask somebody, how much are you asking for the property? No matter what they say, you flinch because you're starting to move that price downward in the right direction for us.
Nice. What's number 2?
2, I'll call bracketing. You're creating a bracket around the price. Bracketing means engineering the middle, engineering to where we want to be. So where do we tend to meet in a negotiation?
In the middle, usually. That's what we like.
Yeah, roughly in the middle, right?
Yeah,
It feels fair. Oh, I said this, you said that. We met in the middle. Well, I guess we both gave a little bit. Okay. So we know that's normal for people to feel like it's fair in the middle. So bracketing means we're going to engineer where the middle is, and we're going to put the middle exactly where we need it to be. So I don't know. Let's say just a single family house somewhere, and I ask you how much, and you say 200,000. I say, woo, 200,000, right? Because these are all layers. I flinched at the number, but let's say, all right, you're at 200, but I need to get this for 150. If I got it for 150, it would be a deal. Well, you're $50,000 above where I need to be. So if I want to make my target price of 150 the middle, where do I have to go?
You probably need to be at like 115 or something like that, 120.
Yeah, well, you're 50,000 high. I've got to go 50,000 low. So
Okay.
if you're at 200, I'm trying to get to 150. You're 50 up. I'm going to go 50 down. So I'd be about 100. Now, your gut instinct on that was right. I don't want to be at exactly 100 because of the third technique that I'll share with you today, which is specific numbers. So I would never offer $100,000 trying to pull you to 150, but I would offer 103,579.
That's funny.
And you're smiling. The listeners can't see it, but you're smiling if you're watching on video. Now, how does that number sound to you? What's making you smile?
It's very, very specific. It's very specific.
It is. And what does that tell you?
There must be some sort of planning, some sort of reason behind that number to get to that specific number. And potentially, you put a great deal of thought into this number that you're trying to really give them the best deal they could possibly give them.
Absolutely. Psychologically, that's what people are thinking when they hear a specific number. Now, did I scientifically calculate that number that I figure out exactly? No, I pulled it out of thin air or maybe somewhere else. But I just pulled that number out, man. I mean, and yet it comes across like I really put some time and thought and effort into it. So that's it. You use those 3 techniques on your very next deal. Watch what happens. And then tell me if you're still scared of negotiating.
Nice. And you said something too, layer these techniques. Layering them is extremely important. And then also practicing them too. I mean, you probably practice with friends and family first before you start making phone calls or talking to people outside of your immediate circle, just to make sure you're delivering it properly, right? Because I imagine in their timing has also a lot to do with how you put this together too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I tell people that you want to practice. I mean, maybe you start to annoy your family after a while, but if you want to practice, just go to Craigslist and start calling some people who have for sale by owners. I mean, they want to be called. That's why they're advertising in Craigslist, and just call them. And honestly, you'll be flinching naturally because they're out of their mind on price already. I can almost guarantee it. So whatever, but just flinch, bracket, use a specific number, get used to those techniques, and then you'll probably want to come to me and learn the rest of the 52
Yeah.
because these are powerful. When you start to learn to move somebody from saying no to saying yes, when you start to get prices dropping down to where you need them to be, suddenly you go, wow, this negotiation thing's really powerful. Why didn't they teach it to me in school?
That's a good
I have
question,
no
isn't
answer
it?
for that, by the way. It's totally missing from school education. Arguably the most important thing in business. It's
100%.
missing from school.
Yeah. Yeah. They're teaching kids books that they don't want to read, though. That's for sure. That's happening. Right. But negotiation, no, kids don't need to know that. They don't need to know.
No, that's too useful. That might turn you into a success story.
Right. They don't want that. Well, I think the real cool thing, though, is that right now with these negotiation techniques you just threw out there, just three of them, you can use them for anything, really, for rehabbing deals, BRRRR deals, wholesale, commercial. You mentioned multifamily. Any of these deals, they use the same sort of strategy when you're putting deals together, right? And not just with a seller, but even with your attorneys or your CPAs or anybody else you're transacting with. These are the skills you really have to know. Otherwise, if you don't negotiate, you're going to get killed. You're going to get killed.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you see applying negotiation, especially to what's coming up right now? And I think in the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to see a lot of distress happening in the market. I mean, we're already seeing, at least as far as single families, they're coming down a little bit here. Like some properties have been sitting on the market for a little while. I see them, like we have a mastermind and we analyze these types of deals too. Negative $10,000, negative $20,000. This another 30 days, negative $30,000. They're coming down, right? How do you get to use?
I'm excited.
I knew you would be. How do you get to use your negotiation tactics? If there's anything special to try to land some of those deals, given where we're going in the economic cycle?
Well, if something's been sitting for a while, then I always point it out because some of the negotiation is educating the other person. When you're pinpointing their problem, you're also educating them as to what you know. So if something's been sitting for a while, it's a pretty easy argument to say, oh, wow, your property's been sitting far longer than normal. You must not be happy about that, are you? Oh, why do you think it's been sitting so long? Because there's really only one reason why. It's overpriced for the condition that it's in. And yeah, the market's dropping a little bit here and there. So let me show you some of the numbers and how we're calculating this. And then you educate them. It's kind of like in school when your math teacher said, show your work. That was to make sure, you can actually do it and you weren't just cheating by coming up with the final answer. Well, I like to show my work because if I offer you 103,579 and you're saying 200, you're doing the math in between saying he's going to make all that as profit. No, I'm not. I go through and I show them the math. I show them my work. I say, this is what it's going to cost me to rehab it. This is what the cost of borrowing the money. This is my fudge factor. This is the unknown. This is my resale cost. This is the cost of borrowing the money. And now suddenly I say, and this is the profit. It's a little bit of profit, not all profit, but most people aren't capable of thinking about all the expenses on the way. Yeah. So that's one of the ways you educate them as you go so that you can get better deals and get them to accept your offer as, yes, being a good and fair offer for them.
See, to me, Tom, it sounds like you're not just throwing out a random number where the educational component's a real big part in terms of building trust and building rapport. And it takes effort to do that. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues why it's not done that way is because it takes effort to do it that way. To actually, quote, present a solution to someone, so they better understand what is the deal. Now, sometimes, listen, not all the sellers are going to want to listen to your presentation or even talk to you about it. Maybe they have their reasons, but clearly they're motivated. That's the thing. I think that's what you're banking on, right? Is the fact that this property's been sitting there for 60 days. They've already dropped the price twice. They want to get rid of this thing, clearly, right? Yeah. So you're counting on the motivation to really help them put them over the line to actually sell.
Yes. And you'll find that when you market for more motivated sellers, it makes your negotiation easier because they're already flexible because of that factor that's motivating them. So that's there's a marketing and negotiation are overlapping circles, and you can't forget that. You want to get a motivated seller because they're already going to be more malleable, more docile when you get into the negotiation phase.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about some of these entrepreneurs that are in your program today. So obviously for someone just starting out, especially, maybe they want to get into real estate, right? They're brand new. They don't know what to do, where to start. How do you help those guys get to where they need to be to be master negotiators? I mean, obviously we know it's going to take time. You already said that, reps and sets. We talked about that too. But for someone that is just starting out, and they're afraid to pick up the phone and call that number. Nobody likes to cold call. Nobody likes to call someone back, especially these days, right? How do you help those guys overcome those barriers?
Well, in my program, I turn it all into a challenge. I find that if we gamify a lot of things, I'll say, look, make 3 calls, make 5 calls, see what happens. Let's practice on this. Oh, make 5 more calls and record them, and now listen to yourself, and then send me a list of what you cringed at. Because if you listen to yourself in a negotiation under fire, like live practice, live fire, you're going to cringe a little bit. And what did you cringe? Now let's fix for that next time and do it again. So it's that idea of the reps and sets, and we cringe as we go. And that way we can fix what it is that we're after. Yeah, so after you record your calls and you see what you're cringing at, it's much easier then to get better at it, because you're always going to cringe at something that you said. And so you constantly get better each time, just like a rep and a repetition, right? You're getting better as you go, purely from practicing. Also, the fear of negotiating goes away because you realize it's not that hard. You're just talking to people. If you make 10 calls, Agnes, you're going to have 10 wildly different conversations, because 10 different people are all wildly different people. And so some are going to be long-winded. Some trying to get any conversation out of them is like pulling teeth, and then everything in between. And so you start to get used to it, and the fear goes away. So I always push my students to just practice enough until the fear goes away. And then you'll watch how powerful you get by just implementing the techniques that I teach you to bring the price down. So you're getting better prices on every deal because you're getting the price down, and you're getting more people to say yes to you. So that's the power of negotiation when it's done right.
And I think a big part of it, though, is that it might take 10, 50, 100, 200 calls, 300 calls. It's going to take a lot of calls to get there. I think that's the hardest part, is pushing through all those things. And I think the great thing that you do is you help people get through those first 100 calls plus, so they can excel at this, because this is not easy. It's not going to be easy, right?
No. That's why it's called work, and that's why work is a 4-letter word half the time. Right? There's some effort needed, and you're going to put some work in. Now, it's not the most difficult thing on earth, but once you push through, you'll be surprised what happens. When I can push somebody to having done 100 calls, one, you generally get a result out of that, and either way, one of the big things that happens to you is you're more comfortable and you're ready to go, and it's not fearful anymore. And you realize it wasn't a ton of work, and it didn't take up a ton of time, and you keep parsing it off. So I like to gamify it. Let's get people through those first 10. Let's get them through the first 100, and then watch what happens.
Yeah, love it, love it, love it. All right, well, we covered a lot here today, Tom. If you had one piece of bulletproof advice for someone that's listening right now, maybe they're looking to really push harder into their real estate business. Maybe they're even stuck right now. They're getting people on the phone, but they're not able to close. They're not able to negotiate. What sort of bulletproof advice would you have to offer them?
Listen to what they're saying, listen more, and ask even more questions. So before you even circle in for the kill, maybe you're missing something, right? You're not digging enough. Keep peeling off layers of the onion in the conversation. Keep asking them for more information. Because I'll put it this way. I forgot who I got this from. It's not my initial thought, but I don't remember where I heard it from. When you are able to describe somebody's problem to them better than they can describe it themselves, they naturally think you also have the solution. So what did you want to do business with? The rapport is going to get so deep with you because you ask the questions and you're able to describe their situation back to them better than they can put it into words themselves. They can't formulate the words and the sentences, but you do. they're naturally going to assume you also have the answer. Therefore, you become the only logical choice. And so sometimes just back off, keep asking more questions, watch what happens. You just might be surprised.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. And I think you also have some great programs too available on the website, right? Enjoying the ride, dive into the real estate game at bulletproofcashflow.com. Got a bunch of free resources there, as well as masterminds that you can join in on. Success awaits there. Go ahead and check it out.
I do. You can go to tomzeeb.com for an entire podcast series. It's called The Art and Science of Real Estate Negotiation. And then my main training programs are over at tractionrealestatementors.com, where I offer a full ongoing training on marketing to find deals, negotiation to make deals, and how to put them under contract, take control, and get paid.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, guys. Well, hopefully you got a lot of insight in this show today. Negotiating is everything in the world of real estate. If you get it wrong, you could overpay for stuff, and sometimes it's hard to recover from those types of deals, right? So paying the right price for the right deal. Of course, underwriting is a big part of it. We know that. But negotiating the right deal so everybody's happy is absolutely huge. Okay, so if you want to reach out to Tom to learn more about how to negotiate these types of deals, any types of deals that you're working on, whether it's a big multifamily, some development, a net lease, or even a single family or a small multifamily, reach out to him, check out his stuff. He's got good stuff. And like I said, he's a personal friend and he's a good dude. So thanks very much for tuning in. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Take care.
You've been listening to the Bulletproof Cashflow Show. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had fun. Make sure to visit our Apple Podcast page and leave us a 5-star review. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. For real estate coaching, events, and resources, hit up bulletproofcashflow.com. Till next time.
No information in this episode should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Any investment opportunities mentioned on this show are limited to accredited or sophisticated investors. Any investments will only be made with proper disclosure and subscription documentation and subject to all applicable laws. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice.